Welcome back to the Ross Bolen podcast. I am your host, Ross Bolen, here as always with Mr. Jared Borislow, J-Bone. How are you, brethren?
I'm doing very well. It's a rainy day, but I'm gonna overcome. I'm gonna do alternative forms of getting vitamin D.
Good. Yeah, you have no choice because there's not a fucking spot of sunshine in the entire sky, J-Bone.
Zero D today.
No D. 2 Ds in this room, though. I had myself a weekend, man. I made it through my first full week off antidepressants. Huzzah. I'm feeling phenomenal. My parents came in town. We had a little birthday party for my girlfriend's daughter. She turns 3 years old tomorrow. Very exciting. It was definitely the most people I have been around in one weekend since 2019. Not an exaggeration. Like, by far, it's not close, bar none. This was the most... It was a little overwhelming, to be sure, this past weekend. Most overwhelming weekend I've had in a while. It was a lot. There was like 100 screaming kids just going ham at this thing. We went to a place called The Aquarium, which was not what I expected.
Yeah, from what I understand, there was much more than fish.
Yeah, the name is the issue. I mean, it was awesome, don't get me wrong, but the name, they shouldn't be calling this place The Aquarium. Let's just get straight into why. Hit it.
And now, Ross Bolen's Animal of the Week.
Our animal of the week is the sloth, because this weekend at the aquarium, I got to feed and pet a 3-year-old sloth. And these things are much more gnarly than I previously realized. But before we learn some wild shit about sloths, I was under the impression that historically aquariums focus on fish.
Yeah, aqua from the Latin for water.
Yeah, you have to imagine. Webster says an aquarium is a transparent tank of water in which fish and other water creatures and plants are kept, or an establishment where aquatic organisms are kept and exhibited. And they for sure had fish at this aquarium, but like they had all kinds of crazy shit, like hundreds and hundreds of birds. There were more birds than fish, to be sure. Parrots, macaws, the works. They should have named this place the zoo, because like there was, I pet and fed a sloth.
My question is this, Ross: were they keeping all of these non-aquatic creatures in aquariums? Like, was it a swim sloth?
No, they were caged. Well, the sloth had its own separate like dark room where it lives, because they're supposed to be nocturnal. There's some differing facts about how nocturnal they may or may not be. It turns out they can adapt. Like, for instance, this sloth, they flipped his whole fucking life upside down. He's awake all day in this dark room to make him think it's night, and then at night when the employees leave, they turn the lights on, and this dude has his day. It's fucking weird. Kind of made me feel bad for him. Like, he has no idea the rest of the sloths are on a completely different schedule. He's got no chance.
He's graveyard shift.
Of escaping and socializing. Yeah, he's the graveyard sloth.
Would he have 3 toes or a 3-toed sloth?
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
We are going to get to that.
By the way, I need to say one last thing.
What's that?
The sloth. Do you know how you say sloth in Spanish?
No.
I learned this from my time in Costa Rica, where there's many a sloth. I would see them out in the wild. It is oso perezoso, which literally translates to the lazy bear.
The lazy bear.
That is what a sloth is
that.
called. Yeah.
Yeah, sloth literally means laziness. And they're common names in several non-English languages, including the one that you just named, Espanol. They also mean lazy, or something similar to lazy, like lazy bear, which is cool. But they're known for being in permanent super slow-mo, obviously. That's why everybody knows the sloth, right? They spend most of their lives hanging upside down in the trees of the tropical rainforests of South America and Central America. And the whole moving slow as shit thing allows them to maintain a low-energy diet of leaves and, more importantly, avoid detection by predatory hawks and big-ass jungle cats that hunt by sight. So it's not like, they're not just lazy turds. It's about energy conservation and predator avoidance, which is the exact same 2 excuses I give everyone about why I don't leave my home regularly. So I have a lot in common with the sloth. I felt like they were kin to me once I had learned all these facts from the sloth keeper.
Is that what they called themselves?
The sloth keeper took his job very, very seriously, as did many of the employees at the aquarium, including the large-bosomed woman who dressed up as Ariel from The Little Mermaid and sang songs from the hit Disney film with a parrot and danced with the parrot and maybe was in a relationship with the parrot. The entire thing was a little creepy. There was also another human in a full mermaid suit lounging behind her on a giant chair that was supposed to be a clam, and she didn't have to move. But then the singing Ariel, who's also supposed to be a mermaid, was up and moving and dancing around with a parrot. It was a little uncomfortable. What?
Did they sing as well as Adele Dazeem?
Not quite good enough to be nominated and introduced by John Travolta, but it was above the talent that I would have expected to find at a place called the Aquarium in like a shopping strip center, which is where this was. It's not like it was a standalone badass aquarium. It was like, there was like a boot store next door.
Yeah, Ross told me on Friday he was going there, and I was driving home from barbecue yesterday, and I'm going over an overpass on a highway, and I look down at this strip mall, and in huge letters it says the Aquarium, and I was like, holy shit.
There it is.
Ross is going to that strip mall.
That's the Aquarium, baby. It's what we've got here in Austin. I grew up in Houston, which is a very big city, fourth biggest in the United States, most diverse in the country, also having some issues with crime right now. But we had like the greatest museums and zoos and shit, like, comparable with the other major U.S. cities. And when I moved to Austin, it was one of the really disappointing things I found. We don't have a very good selection of things like aquariums, which is why this one's in a strip mall and actually has animals that shouldn't be in it. And then like our zoo is a lot like Joe Exotic's setup. It's not, you go out there and you're like, okay, this is not really what I expected. It's all right, but it's no Houston Zoo. It's no San Diego Zoo. For those of you who have been, the San Diego Zoo is a little bit much, in my opinion. I'm not trying to need to take a train from one section of the zoo to another like it's a fucking, theme park.
I mean, it's, again, zoos can also be construed as just large animal prisons.
Yeah.
Although
That's what they are.
Well, some of them are hospitals as well. Like I volunteered growing up at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, home of Winter the Dolphin, where I was starred in the hit 2011 film Dolphin Tale.
True.
2011? I think so.
One of our listeners hit us up over the weekend and said that their entire class had to watch that film together, so they were all exposed to your big debut together as kids.
But that was a hospital, so the only dolphins or sea turtles or otters or whatever, nurse
They're being
sharks,
treated.
But they're never going to be released. They're treated to the point where it's like you have either they were abandoned as a baby and so then they never learned from their mom, so they just need to be kept in captivity.
Yeah, if they put them in the wild, they're going to get eaten.
Or they had their tail eaten off or like slapped off by a boat motor.
Something that keeps them from being able to survive on their own in the wild.
What did the sloth have wrong with it?
I really didn't ask. This guy didn't get into what was wrong with this. That was like, it's one of those things. You don't want to be like, so is there a reason this guy's here? Or are you just an asshole?
What if they were like, yeah, it's celiac disease?
Yeah, who the fuck knows? But anyway, sloths, on average, they travel 41 yards a day, which is obviously less than half the length of a football field. It's not very far.
Yeah, it's about how many yards Dak throws for a game. Am I right?
You love
What a
that, Cowboys
bitch.
fans, don't you? There are 6 extant sloth species in 2 genera. Bradypus, which is the 3-toed sloth, and then Colopus, which is the 2-toed sloth.
Calling him Bradypus?
Bradypus, Bradypus, Bradypus? Bradypus, I don't fucking know. Bradypus sounded more like an animal to me than Bradypus, which sounds like...
The Brady Bunch porno.
Yeah. Brady Pussy. Or a James Bond film from the 70s.
Yes.
They spend like 90% of their lives hanging upside down, made possible because their organs are actually attached to their rib cage, which means they don't weigh down on the lungs when they're upside down. Unlike us, a sloth can hang upside down with no effect on its breathing whatsoever. Their limbs are adapted for hanging and grasping, not for supporting their weight. They have very little muscle compared to what you would think, considering how long they spend hanging upside down. It's only 25 to 30% of their total body weight, where most other mammals have a muscle mass that makes up 40 to 45% of their total body weight. But these little specialized hands and feet that they have with these long curved claws, that's what allows them to hang upside down with almost no energy being expended whatsoever. It's just totally effortless. They're just fucking stuck there. Like, to the point where sometimes they will die and then just remain hanging in the tree like a sloth ornament. It's really creepy. They have specialized tendons in their hands and feet that lock into place. They allow them to hang hard for long periods of time without wasting any energy. Pro move, or lack thereof.
Hanging hard?
Uh-huh. Their shaggy coat has grooved hair so they can host symbiotic green algae. And it's symbiotic because this algae camouflages them, actually keeps them more safe. And then Also, provides them with nutrients. Double the fun. The algae also, they nourish sloth moths as well, which are species of moth found almost exclusively on sloths.
What if there was a Ross moth?
Sloth moths.
Found only on you.
I wish I had a Ross moth. That'd be tight. Just chilling on my shoulder at all times, like a pirate has a parrot, but I have a moth.
Pirate, parrot, Ross moth. I think this is working out.
There's a lot of alliteration happening here. One of the funniest things I learned about the sloths from the sloth keeper at the aquarium is that they only take a shit once a week. Once a week, and scientists estimate that with each dump, sloths lose about 1/5 of their body weight. 1/5, so that's the equivalent of me going and leaving a 30-pound poop every time I drop a deuce.
Honestly, this sounds practical.
Once a week, man. A lot of females listening that can identify with that. Another one of the craziest things I learned, besides the extant species, which just means they still exist. I didn't know that. Maybe I did learn that at one point during the show, I'm sure, but extant, opposite of extinct, means it's still here. Many species of ground sloths, ranging up to the size of elephants, inhabited both North and South America during the Pleistocene Epoch, is as close as I can come to pronouncing it. However, they became extinct during the Quaternary extinction event around 12,000 years ago, along with most of the large-bodied animals in the world.
I don't know, Ross. I see a lot of human-sized sloths in the Congress building. Those people don't do anything.
Oh, the government, Jared. Good political joke. See, that was for both sides.
Yeah.
That was for both sides. Megatherium americanum, which actually just sounds like a cryptocurrency,
It does.
is what the name of the giant land sloth was. It's one of the largest land mammals known to have existed, weighing up to 4.4 short tons, and I do not know the difference between short tons and tall tons, and measuring up to 20 feet in length from head to tail. It's a fucking monster sloth, J-Bone. They showed us pictures of this thing, and like the comparison between like the sloth that I fed size-wise to what the monster sloth was like, and this thing needed to go. We do not want these around.
Were they slow, though, too?
They were still, like, I think a lot of the same strategies applied, but a lot of what the modern day sloth has picked up much of its lack of movement from a need to hide and survive, whereas this sloth way back when was so damn big, I'm pretty sure it was doing serious battle with other big creatures that lived back then. You could rip your face right off, Jared. Just right off. Nothing you can do with that. Megatherium. The largest known ground sloth, as big as modern elephants, and would have only been exceeded in its time by a few species of mammoth in size. So It was one of the biggest creatures that roamed however many millions of years ago. It turns out I looked up this period of time, the Pleistocene Epoch, and that covers just a ridiculous amount of years. I don't know how many segments there are in the Pleistocene Epoch, but that thing by itself, it's not very specific is what I mean. The facial structure of a sloth gives it the appearance that it's constantly smiling, even if it's experiencing pain, stress, or anxiety.
Same.
A lot of humans can identify with that as well. Sloths move only when necessary, and even then very slowly. They usually move at an average speed of 13 feet per minute, but can move at a marginally higher speed of 15 feet or 13 feet per minute, but they can get up to 15 feet per minute if they're in immediate danger from a predator. While they sometimes sit on top of branches, they usually eat, sleep, and even give birth hanging from the branches because it requires less effort for them to actually hang from their goofy-ass claws than it does to sit on their asses. They sometimes, like I said, remain hanging from the branches even after death, like some kind of sloth ornament. They're surprisingly strong swimmers, can reach speeds of 44 feet per minute, and maybe that's the loophole that made them throw this thing into the aquarium.
Well, it's faster in water than it is on land.
Like,
so.
we can swim. Are we allowed to be held in the aquarium? Can I get a dark room for me to sleep in and take naps during the day? I used to be, like, nocturnal-ish. I was a night person, night owl, as they call it. Maybe they should call it a night sloth. How come the owl gets all the credit for all nocturnal creatures when the sloth is out there hanging? I don't get it. Anyway, they use their long arms to paddle through the water and cross rivers and swim between islands. And I guess, look, if I ever see a sloth swimming from island to island, that's just going to make my entire life. They can reduce their already slow metabolism even further and slow their heart rate to less than a third of normal, allowing them to hold their breath underwater for 40 minutes. A sloth.
Yeah, what? These do sound now like aquatic animals.
Right? I didn't know the sloths were this interesting, man.
Are they sure they didn't just find like a really lazy otter? Hey, look at that lazy ass otter. Oh, it's a sloth,
that's
I guess.
close enough. Let's throw it in the aquarium. Fuck it. But yeah, the sloth keeper took his job super fucking serious. And at one point he was like, we were a good 10 minutes into, this is a small room, smaller than the room that you and I are in now. And you can only take 6 or 7 people in at a time. And there's one sloth and he has his whole setup in this tree or whatever that he does not exit. And you get to feed him like celery sticks and carrots and shit. And like 10 minutes into this spiel, which was a lot longer than I expected it to be. And we had to cut this guy off. Like, he could have kept going all day. But eventually we were like, sir, this room is incredibly humid. We would like to leave now, please. I think we've learned as much about the sloth as we would like. But 10 minutes in, he goes, oh, yeah, by the way, if I give a command, like, hand away, I need it to happen immediately. And I was like, or... And it turns out they have sharp as shit teeth. He was like, or I'll show you what their skull looks like. And I was like, okay. And he shows me a picture of the skull, and it looks like a fucking saber-toothed tiger. Like, these things are not to be trifled with. It's like the koala. You grow up thinking it's this cute, fun little creature, and then you find out they're actually incredibly ornery psychopaths that if you fuck with them or their eucalyptus leaves, they'll take your face right off.
Do you think that sloth has ever caught a body?
If a sloth has caught a body of late, it is this sloth in the aquarium. And then they just like buried whoever got taken out somewhere in the aquarium.
They'll probably feed it to the birds. Are they vultures?
The sloth?
No, did they have vultures in the aquarium?
No vultures.
Okay.
No vultures. But a shit ton of, oh God, I went over to the parrots at one point. So I'm like walking around this place and there's this setup that has no cage, nothing keeping these animals from getting at me. And there's like, you know, 2 little, like almost like our microphone stands, just little fake stands for these parrots to chill on. And there's 4 parrots and I go over to one and I'm like 3 feet from him and I just go, hello, you know, like you would say like to a bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't like that. He flew directly at my head and almost took my fucking head off. Like, I was like, holy fucking God. Like, did anybody just see that? Just so it could go post up somewhere else? And they're just allowed to roam free like that. I'm betting that at least once a year, a parrot takes somebody's eye at this aquarium, if I had to guess. Anyway, it was fun. Good times. And we're all sloth experts now on this sloth podcast. Salute the sloth. Today's episode of RBP is brought to you by Liquid IV 2022. We are deep into you, and there's no better way to kick it off than by making sure you're feeling your best self. One goal I have for myself this year is to stay consistent with my ROSFit training, and I will be doing that with the help of my favorite hydration product, Liquid IV. 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates faster and more efficiently than water alone. They have incredible flavors like watermelon, lemon lime, strawberry, pina colada, and more. Jared and I have been drinking Liquid IV for years and years and telling y'all how much we love them, and they are phenomenal.
Ross, check this out. I'm drinking it right now.
How about that? Jared's more refreshed and hydrated than me at the moment.
You look like a prune and I look like a bloated grape.
They contain 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks, made with premium ingredients, non-GMO, free from gluten, dairy, and soy. And if you're like, well, what makes this work? How's it so effective? It's the science of cellular transport technology designed to enhance rapid absorption of water and other key ingredients into the bloodstream so that 1 stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates faster and more efficiently than water alone. And Liquid IV is on a mission to change the world, having donated over 19 million servings globally. So go grab Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code ROSS at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order when you use promo code ROSS at liquidiv.com. Experience better hydration today at liquidiv.com. Promo code ROSS. I've got some insane headlines of the day for you. The first of which is one that I want to say I saw it coming, but I didn't see it coming, and coming is definitely part of the equation. From CNN, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky are expecting a baby.
Yeah, this is going to be the hottest. Once it becomes an adult, it is going to be the hottest adult on the
You don't
planet.
think you can be a hot baby? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I was about to say hottest baby, and I went, wait, that's not at all what I'm trying to say.
I think in this case, that would be prudent. This will be the hottest baby ever birthed. I'm seriously, though. Rihanna and ASAP have been photographed out with each other over the past few months, and people have been known. It's been known that they have been dating for a minute. But what I kept noticing was that she was wearing like real big ass clothes, like very much the opposite of form fitting. And it turns out there was definitely a reason for that, because over the weekend in NYC, several outlets, including People magazine, published photos of the singer and the fashion mogul Rihanna happily displaying her bare belly. And she had like jewelry down, like dangling over the bare, and it's like she's many weeks in. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know. 15 weeks. I don't know. She's got a baby bump is the point. And this will obviously be the first child for the couple. In March of 2020, Rihanna told British Vogue that within 10 years, quote, "I'll have kids, 3 or 4 of them." And a part of that was apparently related to it didn't matter if she found Mr. Right. She was still going to try to have as many kids as she wanted. And she said, quote, "I feel like society makes me want to feel like, oh, you got it wrong. They diminish you as a mother if there's not a dad in your kids' lives. But the only thing that matters is happiness. That's the only healthy relationship between a parent and child. That's the only thing that can raise a child truly, is love."
She also has a lot of money.
She found love in a hopeless place, though, Jared,
It's true.
during the pandemic with A$AP Rocky.
How long have they been together?
They've been friends for fucking ever. Since, like, I want to say at least a decade. But in terms of dating, much less. Last couple years, maybe. They're both 33 years old. And they went public with their relationship in May of 2021, when he called her the love of his life during an interview with GQ, adding that fatherhood was, quote, "in my destiny." Absolutely. Here's another quote from A$AP. "I think I'd be an incredible, remarkably overall amazing dad. I would have a very fly child." Very.
Yeah. Why do you have to say "very" again at the end?
End quote. Because he just wanted to be sure we knew. And then, to his credit, he went and knocked up Rihanna, which, like we just said, will create the flyest child perhaps ever born. This thing is going to come out of the womb wearing Balenciaga. So congratulations to A$AP Rocky and Rihanna on finding love in a hopeless place. Next headline from Vice. 20,000 coconuts filled with liquid cocaine seized by shocked officials.
By liquid cocaine, do they mean Bang Energy?
I think they do. This is just coconuts filled with Bang Energy. It's a huge shipment, though, of 20,000 coconuts filled with liquid cocaine that was discovered at a Colombian port en route to Italy.
Italy?
Yeah. In a release, Colombian authorities said a container holding the gigantic shipment of coconuts was set to leave Cartagena, Colombia, of course, and was bound for Genoa, Italy.
You crushed both those.
Fuck yeah. Anti-narcotics personnel found and confiscated 504 bags containing 19,780 export-type coconuts. They sent them to a laboratory to establish the exact amount of cocaine that they contain, because liquid cocaine, when it's turned into powder cocaine, is a different weight than when it's a liquid.
What is liquid cocaine? Is it dissolved in water?
You have to do, it's some kind of chemical deal. I've read about this before. They're always these freaking drug smugglers, man. Like you've read stories about them finding like 10,000 teddy bears that were stuffed with cocaine or whatever. But there's some way to chemically take whatever the fuck compromises cocaine and make it into a liquid, and then once it gets to where you want it to be, you put something in it and have to stir it. I'm imagining there's lots of stirring.
There always is.
Lots and lots of stirring. And then it turns back into the blowski that we all know and love and some of us hate.
And people are just wearing underwear, right? And wearing gas masks.
Yeah, you're not allowed to be fully dressed. Everybody knows that about the stirrers. It's just like the sloth keeper. He wasn't fully dressed either.
And you're not allowed to be fully dressed because there's a chance you might try to hide the paddle in your clothes and steal the paddle.
Or your rectum. They're always trying to steal those paddles. That's the most valuable part of the cocaine operation.
It is.
The scam was spotted after airport scanners showed unusual density inside some of the coconuts. It's good to know those things work. A small hole had been bored into the coconuts, and their water had been extracted with a syringe and replaced with liquid cocaine before being resealed with brown resin.
This is a pretty smart operation. I wonder how many times it was successful before they got found.
And I'm wondering how pissed off the guy is who had to spend like 3.5 months individually syringing out coconut water and replacing it with liquid cocaine only to have the authorities find it and destroy all of his good work.
Yeah, that honestly sucks.
Yeah. You know he's furious
That's
today.
a lot of bitch work.
Oof. All for nothing. And they're going to throw him under the bus, too.
Yeah.
Probably blame him. He's probably dead already. Or her. Rest in peace. Next headline. Sony buys Bungie for $3.6 billion.
What has Bungie done ever besides Halo?
Destiny.
Okay, well, that's a pretty popular game.
Very popular.
I will.
That's the other moneymaker.
I will stand back.
Yeah, this entire thing comes in reaction to Microsoft several weeks ago buying Activision Blizzard, which we talked about on the show, and Activision Blizzard has had a lot of issues that made that just a pretty complicated situation and story for us to discuss. But this is Sony's response. They've bought Bungie, which most famously, to Jared's point, makers of Halo. But yeah, $3.6 billion deal that further centralizes the rapidly consolidating game industry. It's all kind of a reaction to the metaverse shit. It feels like an arms race.
Yeah, but so does this mean Halo is coming to the PlayStation?
I'm not entirely sure. Like, there's not a ton of detail around what will be made exclusive as a result of the deal. But here's a quote from Jim Ryan, Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO. He said, "This is a strategic step towards continuing to evolve the gaming experiences that we build. Bungie's expertise in delivering a world-class service approach and long-term community engagement is extremely compelling and will support the development of several future live service titles from PlayStation Studios." So I think it's for stuff moving forward. I don't think they're just going to get full, exclusivity to fucking Halo and Destiny and shit. That wouldn't even make sense. But yeah, Bungie, in its own announcement, separately said it remains committed to its own creative vision and independence, which, if I paid $3.6 billion for something and then heard a quote like that, I'd be slightly upset. But it says, quote, "We remain in charge of our destiny."
Is that a double entendre?
Little plug for them. "We will continue to independently publish and creatively develop our games. We will continue to drive one unified Bungie community. Our games will continue to be where our community is, wherever they choose to play." So then what the fuck is Sony paying for? Exclusivity of later Bungie projects? Like, I don't know why you would pay $3.6 billion, like top dollar, for a gaming studio and then not be able to make their games your exclusive product so that you could pull more consumers into the Sony PlayStation world, right? Like, it's a confusing buy for that reason.
Yeah, you would think that it would be like a big switch. Like, okay, now Halo, every Halo from here on out is now only on PlayStation.
Right.
To get everybody to buy PlayStations who likes Halo, which is like, if you love Halo, you probably don't have a PlayStation because you've been playing Halo on an Xbox.
I mean, that was always one of the main reasons to go Xbox over Halo. You were kind of either a Halo guy or you weren't. And if you were a Halo guy, you did not fuck with Sony, because they didn't have Halo. Well, now they will, I guess. The deal comes less than 2 weeks after Microsoft announced it was acquiring Activision Blizzard, which controls popular properties such as Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, and has also been embroiled in crisis over corporate leadership and workplace culture. So hopefully Bungie doesn't have any of those problems. None of them have been reported at Bungie, but I have to imagine that a purchase like this will put them under the spotlight in terms of their own leadership and workplace culture. So, shouts to all the Sony boys and girls out there who scored some kind of victory today. We're just not sure what kind yet. Mm-hmm. Jared, the Winter Olympics are starting in a few days. February 4th is the opening ceremony. They run February 4th through February 20th with 15 sports and 109 medal events. I've never really been a Winter Olympics guy. I spend a lot of my life complaining about winter as a season.
This is also a very controversial Winter Olympics because of all the extent to which China is going to slap the environment in the face in order to create snow.
Turns out there's a lack of fresh pow-pow.
Yeah.
And they are forcing it, you could say.
Yeah, and there's there's a little bit over 1 billion, Chinese people who knows if all of them have access to clean water. And that clean water is going to be used to make
snow
where it's not naturally.
For people to do skiing and snowboarding down. Yeah, there's a lot of issues coming out of China as the games approach. One of the other things they've done, as they are wont to do in China, is pretty much shut down any and all activists speaking out against the games. So, like one story from the New York Times, Chinese authorities have detained activists in their homes and sent others to jail. Censors have shut down the social media accounts of prominent critics. Officials have warned Olympians that protests could bring prosecution. So, if you are participating in the games even, you need to be careful about what you're doing and saying if you're being broadcast, because the Chinese government is a little nut when it comes to people speaking ill of them. As athletes, journalists, and other participants arrive for the Winter Olympics that begin on Friday, they are encountering some of the most intense security measures ever imposed at an international sporting event. Many of those are precautions against COVID-19, of course, but others reflect the Chinese government's growing intolerance of dissent and criticism. Hu Jia, a prominent human rights activist, said the police in Beijing were confining him to his apartment. In January, he took to Twitter to criticize state security agents for questioning, harassing, and detaining critics ahead of the Winter Olympics. Since then, the police have visited him 4 times in 8 days. Quote, "They said if I don't stay silent, my rights to visit my mother may be affected." Adding that the authorities were determined to quash any overt criticisms of the games online, which is just not really possible. China's efforts to control the internet are fucking hilarious to me. And the amount of their citizens using things like VPNs to get around this shit and not be trackable is also hilarious to me. But overall, yeah, it's a little bit weird that we're going back to, this is like they hosted the 2008 Olympics, so Beijing is set to become the first city to ever host both the summer and winter editions of the games ever.
Yep.
Didn't realize that had never been done before. 91 countries will participate in the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing with approximately 3,000 athletes plus coaches and officials. The U.S. is sending 222 athletes, nice little even number, to the games. Beijing is 14 hours ahead of us, by the way, if you're wondering. And that's us in Central Time, CST, here in Austin, Texas. But that's 14 hours ahead of us, so it's, I'm assuming, going to be a massive pain in the ass to get to watch anything that we actually want to watch. Speaking of which, there are 7 new events debuting at this 2022 Winter Olympics. Women's monobob.
Is that like a haircut thing?
You know, it's bobsledding by yourself, but it's different than luging. You're in a one-person bobsled, and previously only men were allowed to do this at the Olympics.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wait,
so
it's not skeleton, which is the one where it's like a little board and you're head first. That's a crazy one.
Nope, also different. Why do they have so many variations of like get in or on a thing and slide very quickly down a track? That's a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. Aren't they going like 80 miles an hour on this ice luge, this human ice luge?
In the actual luge event, they can get up to 90 miles per hour. I think the record is 96 or something like that.
So what's the difference between luge and bobsled?
Bobsled, you're in a bobsled, and luging, you're on a luge.
Oh, you're on the... Okay,
yeah, there is nothing protecting you when you're luging. Like, in a bobsled, it's the full-blown, everybody's seen, what's it called, Cool Runnings?
Yeah.
Where the Jamaicans form a bobsled team, and the bobsled is almost like a canoe. Or, no, it's like a kayak, right? Because you're enclosed, but, there's like 3 or 4 of you in there or whatever. I don't remember how many.
Sanka, you dead man.
But when luging is being done, it's just you like laying on that fucking thing, and there's no wall, you're not enclosed. There's nothing really keeping you
I can
from...
picture it now. And then skeleton is like the luge, but instead of being on your back with your head back, you're on your stomach with your head forward.
Which seems like the one that I would want to do.
That seems terrifying.
You didn't like going down slides head first when you were a kid while your parents screamed at you, "Feet first, you fuck!" No?
Hands away!
What the hell is wrong with you? We've got the women's monobob debuting, the mixed relay and short track speed skating, also men and women's big air freestyle skiing, that's 2 separate events, mixed team freestyle skiing aerials, mixed team ski jumping, and mixed team snowboard cross. Almost none of which I could tell you what they are based on just the name. What's your favorite Winter Olympic event, J-Bone?
I like the snowboarding trick ones. The half pipe.
The half pipe snowboarding.
That's cool.
Watch the flying tomato.
Is
he retired?
No, I think he's back.
God damn. How many of these is he going to do?
A lot.
What's his actual name?
Sean White.
Sean White.
The flying tomato.
It's a really good nickname if I can remember your nickname, but not your actual name. The flying tomato.
And then I also... I do, okay, curling, obviously everybody loves to
loves.
I love curling is actually really boring.
Yes.
It's just like it's funny for me to say I like curling. It's not cool.
It's everybody's go-to for like, curling's funny. But then if you actually went and sat and watched 10 minutes of curling, you'd be like, okay, this is fucking absolutely unwatchable.
I like ski jumping a lot. I think it's really cool. That's
Dude,
crazy.
That shit gives me like heights anxiety. Watching them, because they go so goddamn high off of those jumps.
They're like 10 stories high.
Have you been skiing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We go skiing like once a year.
You still go skiing once a year?
Ish. I haven't been.
Oh yeah, we've talked about this:
Yeah.
the snowboarders versus the skiers and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I have never been skiing, so it's kind of hard for me to relate to just how difficult the things are that they're doing. You know,
Going over a jump that puts me about 4 feet in the air feels terrifying.
Yeah.
And these people are like 100 feet in the air, something crazy.
yeah, shit is wild. I'm a figure skating fan.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
I like watching them do the figure skating, man. And I'm talking about like the couples figure skating. I don't give a shit how well you can dance on ice skates by yourself. I need to see you holding a woman, you know, upside down in the air by one pinky, spinning her at a ridiculous rate of speed. So I like figure skating.
I like speed skating too. Apollo Anton Ono.
Yeah,
He was-
but
he
it's
was
like
the goat.
NASCAR to me, though. It's just like you're just it's a circle.
No, there's fast, and then they slide out, and then sometimes the person will slide out and take out everybody else. That happened in the finals. I want to say maybe in the Sydney Olympics, where this one dude was in last place, and then everybody got wiped out, and he just went across the line and was like, "Yay!"
I
and got
did
a
it.
gold medal.
Yeah, one time Happy Gilmore took his skate off and tried to stab somebody with it.
Really?
He was the only ice skater to ever do that.
Wow.
Also, the luge. You mentioned it, but the luge is fucking insane. Bobsled with no protection. You're going 90 miles an hour, and I love watching that shit. It blows my mind. Here's a list of all the sports in the 2022 Winter Olympics. Alpine skiing, biathlon.
That's the one where you cross-country ski and then shoot a target, right?
That is sick. Bobsled, cross-country skiing, curling, figure skating, freestyle skiing, ice hockey, the luge, Nordic combined, not sure, the skeleton, ski jumping, snowboarding, short track speed skating, and speed skating.
Short track is the one I like. I don't like the big track. I like short track.
Good luck to everybody in China for the Winter Olympics. In my opinion, the only way to make the Winter Olympics anywhere near as interesting and watchable as the Summer Olympics is by betting on them. Thankfully, we have a sports betting sponsor here at RBP by the name of MyBookie. Check out their website at MyBookie.ag, where they already have alpine skiing and ice hockey lines up for the Winter Olympics, with a lot more coming. And of course, we have the Super Bowl approaching between the Rams and the Bengals. If anybody saw that coming at the beginning of the year, you get a big gold star. With the Rams opening as 4-point favorites, I am never betting against Joe Burrow ever again. He is now on my list of people to not bet against in the NFL, so I'm all over Bengals +4. We're also approaching the NBA All-Star break. Back half of the season is coming for the NBA. NHL hockey is underway, and you can bet it all at mybookie.ag. Just use the code RBP when you sign up to unlock a double deposit bonus up to $1,000, which means if you put in $100 and use the code RBP upon sign up on mybookie.ag, they will match that with another $100. Very cool. So, to support the podcast and unlock that double deposit bonus, go to mybookie.ag today. Use the code RBP. Stipulations apply. Support the pod and get your sports betting done at the same time. Winter Olympics, Super Bowl, NHL hockey, NBA, they've got it all. As we announced last week, 2022 is officially the year of the dog here on the Ross Bolen podcast. So all year long, Jared and I will be paying respects to man's best friend with some of the most famous dog stories ever told. We'll also be sharing photos of our listenership's furry friends on our Instagram page at the Ross Bolen podcast. We actually already started doing this. We had some over the weekend come in. Love seeing y'all's dogs. Make sure you keep them coming. You can either DM us directly on Instagram at the Ross Bolen podcast. That's probably the best way to do it, actually.
Ooh, no, the best way is to post it in your story and tag us. And then we reshare you, and you also get your account promoted to tens of thousands of people. Maybe you'll get some followers from that.
What a smart lad. Yeah, we'll be making hot dog merch for y'all to buy on bolenmedia.com/shop. Hot dogs. We're all about hot dogs and hot babies here on RBP. I'm actually rocking socks that have 2 of my 4 dogs on them today. Bruce and Bella, the toy Aussies you've all come to know and love over the years. Bruce just turned 9 years old in December. Bella turns 9 in April. And they are definitely as important as any members of my actual human family to me. Jared also has a dog.
I do.
Millie. Jared, tell us a little about Millie for those who don't know.
2-year-old Aussie Doodle. Now, as far as the Aussie Doodle goes, some people call it the Aussie Poo, because if you look at the word Australian Shepherd, there's no D in the word Australian, so calling it an Aussie Doodle, you know, like Labradoodle, Labrador, Poodle, it's weird, but I like it because it sounds better than Poo.
Aussie Poo is not, that's not it.
An Aussie Poo is what, who's that famous Aussie guy who wore the hat?
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No, the other one. Crocodile Dundee. An Aussie Poo is what he does after he drinks too many Fosters.
Schwarzenegger's not from Australia, just to be clear.
He's from Austria. Actually, really close. I think about that. But yeah, she's a very nice dog. Very
Millie's
energetic.
Awesome. Super animated.
She looks like a human. So every single time we're in the elevator and we meet somebody new, they look at our dog and go, she has human eyes. One time, some person said, there's a human in there, and seemed kind of concerned.
That was an actual person wearing like a dog costume?
Either that. I took it more as like she was very spiritual.
Like there was a human soul trapped inside your dog?
People tell us that all the time. She does have human eyes because the way that her eyes are, like if you look at them,
big-ass
they have
eyes.
they have a lot of white in the eye, which a lot of dogs don't have.
Yeah. No, it does give her a little bit of a cartoonishly human quality if she's looking right into your eyes. And she also just has like a great smile. Just a great smile on Millie. But yeah, Jared and I are big dog lovers, as are very, very many of you listening right now. So we want to hear your stories about your dogs. Email Ross at rossbolandpodcast.com if you have a special story about your dog or dogs, and I will share the worthy ones with our audience to spread dog appreciation even further around the globe. And as we said, on Instagram, next time you put up a picture of your dog in your stories, tag at the Ross Bolen Podcast. And if it's solid, which it should be because you're you, we will share it to our story.
You can also put year of the dog in text there to maybe show your followers kind of like what's going on.
That would be nice. Give a little context to the whole situation for anybody who's like, what's going on with the picture of the dog that says at the Ross Bolen Podcast? Year of the dog, baby. We're doing it all 2022. So we have that to look forward to. This is the earliest I think we've announced the year of since like the OG one. Every year since then, it's been like at least March before I finally made a decision. So get to enjoy 11 full months, today being the 31st of January, 11 full months of the year of the dog remain. Get in there. Send us your photos. Send us your stories. Ross at rossbolandpodcast.com. Email me today. Birthday shouts. Our listener Michael's best friend, Cagney. He's a hound. Turned 10 years old. Happy birthday to Cagney. Happy birthday, Eva May. Happy birthday to the little girl formerly known as the baby, now the child, turning 3 years old tomorrow. Maybe she'll hear this one day. I don't know.
Is that the like breaking off point of baby to child?
It's been over the past like 6 months. I've been like, when I call her the baby, I'm like, but she's not a baby. Like, you're not a baby after like 6 months or a year, I guess. I think that's the cutoff. 1 year. After a year, you're not a baby anymore. Now you're a child.
What about a tyke?
But I held on as long as I could. Little tyke. What is that short? It's got to be short for something weird.
Tycoon, because my baby is going to be a fucking CEO.
Is it going to be a hot baby, though?
Probably not. If you look at me, but you know, my fiance covers it, so we'll be good.
Thankfully, she is very good looking. I still think you're a hot boy, Jared.
Thank you.
As do many of our listeners. Don't hate on yourself. Jared and I will be back Wednesday, but if you need more RBP before then, you know where to go. Patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast, where every week, except for the weeks that I have COVID, we drop an which is not often. It's only happened once. We drop an ad-free, brand new exclusive episode of our show with never before heard footage on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast for those who are directly supporting us with a minimum pledge of $5 monthly for a ton more content. If you've never been on Patreon and you go sign up right now, you get access to our entire backlog, including a lot of the great classic episodes that Jared and I have teased recently, our interview with his mom from a couple years ago, the famous Borislow Brothers episode that's on Patreon and only on Patreon, as well as so many more. Our interview with Armin Kaleshin.
Interviews with Dave Ruff, Will DeFries.
All kinds of different folks have come through and been guests on Patreon. It's a great place to be.
Dan Regester.
Hotline calls as well also make their way to patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast. So get in there, support the show. Make sure Jared and I have the ability to do what we do here at Bolen Media and get yourself some more RBP in return. Also, everybody on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast has access to a 10% off code for our newly launched merch on bolenmedia.com/shop.
New designs.
We've got the Bone Zone t-shirt. We've got Ross Bolen's wife left him. We've got If You Can Read This, You Are Not Alone. We've got coffee mugs. We've got hoodies. We've got all kinds of good stuff with a lot more coming all 2022, including Year of the Dog merch, which we're going to get cracking on sometime soon. So hit bolenmedia.com/shop right after you hit patreon.com/Ross Bolen podcast and get yourself a 10% off code for that merch. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram at The Ross Bolen Podcast, on TikTok at The Ross Bolen Podcast, and on Twitter at Ross Bolen Pod. Jared is at Jared Borislow on Instagram and Twitter. I am at WR Bolen on Instagram and Twitter and Titter.
And Titter.
At the Titters. They do call me WR Bolen at the Titters. And we'll be back soon. Until next time, peace be with you and also with you.